Deku's new power surpasses QUIRKS as he delivers one final attack against All For One. The United States declares war. The whole world is watching, and the MHA series is about to come to an explosive end. So let's talk about it. You guys know how this works. If you enjoy my MHA videos and you want to see more in the future, leave a quick like and comment for that YouTube algorithm. And of course, if you watch my videos but you haven't taken the time to subscribe yet, just a quick reminder that subscribing is completely free and it helps me out a lot. Now, in the last chapter, we saw so many familiar faces from Class 1A encouraging Deku to keep fighting and reassuring him that they will fight alongside him until the bitter end. Along with the Class 1A students, dozens of other heroes and hero students arrived, including Class 1B students, Kami and Seiji from Shiketsu, Burnin, Gentle, Gang Orca, Space Hero 13, and many more. All For One then activated some massive quirk cluster that resulted in all sorts of grotesque spikes and tendrils popping out of his arms, making him look like a dark angel of death. But the heroes refused to give up, and soon after that, Endeavor and Shoto both showed up and attacked All For One with a father-son Flash Fire Fist. President Mike appeared last and told the heroes that they were the only ones left, the only heroes still capable of standing and fighting against All For One. They had this one last big job, and they had to work together to take down the final boss. All For One unleashed massive overpowered attacks, and the heroes did their best to divert these attacks, but All For One is so fast and powerful that it took literally dozens of heroes to divert a single attack. As for Deku, he revealed to Aizawa and the others that he no longer possesses One For All. His quirk is gone. He is now quirkless. However, even though he doesn't have One For All anymore, he still has some embers of the quirk, just like All Might did after he transferred the quirk to Deku. So Deku decided to stand and keep fighting, and to put the last of his strength and the very last of One For All's embers into a final desperate attack against All For One. With the heroes and all the civilians all over Japan cheering him on, Deku stood up and began to run towards All For One. Despite all his injuries, despite the fact that he lost his quirk, and despite the fact that he only just got both his arms back like a few seconds ago, he still chose to rush right into danger because that is just the kind of hero that he is. But unlike before, Deku is not alone anymore because every hero and hero student who can still fight is fighting alongside him. The latest chapter starts off right where the last one left off, with Aoyama helping Deku stand up and then Deku moving forward amidst a barrage of attacks from All For One. Aizawa wants to use Kurogiri's quirk to get Deku right in front of All For One so that Deku can use the last embers of One For All to attack. But unfortunately, it's clear that Kurogiri is completely drained and he is unable to make any more warp gates. The poor man is barely standing and his face looks like it's about to melt away or something. After using so many warp gates to get all the available heroes and hero students here to the final battlefield, he simply cannot make any more. This means that in order to reach All For One, Deku will have to make his way through the crumbling earth and through all the tendrils and all the other attacks coming from All For One. Right now, the entire battlefield looks like it's literally being torn apart by all of All For One's attacks, and the heroes who are there are desperately trying to open up a path for Deku. All the attacks that the heroes have been trying against the villain are simply not working, and all they can do is use their quirks to desperately defend from All For One's attacks. And this is just the beginning of the hero's problems, because All For One is only getting warmed up. He initiates a full factor release, meaning that he is activating all of his quirk factors within Shigaraki's body at the same time. All For One says that this technique, which requires using and controlling multiple quirk factors at once, requires a calm and cool head, and it shouldn't be used in an emotional state. The other All For One tried to use this while in the process of being rewound into an extremely emotional and agitated child, and so he wasn't able to wield the power effectively. But this All For One is a whole other story. With Shigaraki's personality seemingly completely neutralized, All For One is free to take full control of this body without any opposition, and he is also in full control of his emotions and faculties. As a result, he calmly uses the full factor release technique to form a giant cannon and fire off a massive laser beam at the heroes. The laser beam looks like it's about to land a direct hit on Deku, but thankfully Toru is able to use her special light refracting body to deflect the laser beam away from Deku. Then, as a thankfully unharmed Deku continues to run towards the villain, Momo uses her quirk to create a giant railgun, and then it's powered by Kaminari so that the railgun shoots right at All For One. Unfortunately, this attack doesn't seem to actually affect All For One, at least not in any significant way. He simply calls the students insolent and continues to launch his tendrils and other attacks in the direction of Deku. However, all of Deku's friends and allies jump in to deflect the attacks and keep Deku safe, even at the cost of injuring themselves in the process. Deku is furious when he sees this, and he screams at All For One to stop hurting everybody. But Ojiro and Sato tell Deku to just focus on his goal and to save his strength. Deku has already suffered so much damage and yet he is still fighting, so he needs to let the others take some hits for him as he struggles to reach All For One. At the end of the day, Deku is the shonen protagonist here. I mean, that's not exactly what they said, but they basically said that Deku is the only one who can deliver the final blow to All For One. So the rest of them have to do their best to block all the villain's attacks until Deku is able to reach him. Along with Sato and Ojiro, Tsuyu and Shoji also jump in to deflect All For One's tendrils and to help Deku keep moving forward. Once again, we see people from all over the world watching the fight on TV, and we see Tsuyu's family rooting for her and telling her to do her best. That little girl that Shoji had saved during his tragic backstory recognizes him and she tells Shoji to also do his best. Now, of course, Shoji and Tsuyu are not agile or strong enough to completely dodge or block all of All For One's attacks, but they are able to use their quirks and their training to help Deku get just a little bit further, and that is kind of the point of this entire chapter. No hero or hero student can hope to counter All For One's attacks on their own. They are vastly outmatched by the nearly invincible villain. But the point is that with all of them working together and with all of them doing their part, even if that part is just a small one, they can act as a team and they can all contribute to the ultimate goal. The goal of allowing Deku to reach All For One and use what's left of One For All to finally defeat him. Mina is also there helping, Kirishima is there, Mineta, Jiro, Gentle, everyone is doing what they can, even if what they can do is very little. They all do their part and they all tell Deku, "Ganbare, do your best." Deku thanks them with tears in his eyes and he continues running towards the goal. For his part, All For One is frustrated because his cold, calculating villain mind can't understand why these weak, soon-to-be corpses continue to stubbornly fight against him. Why did they refuse to just quit or die? And why are their eyes so fierce and defiant, even though they are clearly outmatched and barely able to move? And in that moment, All For One finally seems to understand Izuku Midoriya's secret power. His secret strength that sets him apart from all other heroes, including even All Might himself. Paradoxically, Deku's strength is his weakness. Deku is an underdog, a quirkless kid who had to struggle all his life in order to even have a chance at becoming a hero. This is something that All Might lacked, because even though All Might was born quirkless, he was always extremely strong and agile. He always had a strong body, and when he inherited One For All, the quirk only enhanced his already impressive strength. But Deku didn't have that luxury. Before he inherited One For All, he wasn't particularly fast or strong or agile. He started from the very bottom as an underdog, and even though you can say that he got lucky because All Might decided to transfer One For All onto him, Deku had to struggle much harder than All Might in order to learn to actually use and control One For All. As I said earlier, All Might had a body that was much stronger than the average person even before he inherited One For All. But Deku didn't, so at first, every time he tried to use One For All, he would break his own body. He would break and tear his fingers and arms and more, and then he would go through a long and painful process of recovery until he finally learned to control the quirk better. All For One finally realizes that Deku, this underdog who refuses to give up, is the one who keeps motivating all these other heroes and hero students to keep fighting and to keep being defiant in the face of certain death. If the villain wants to win this war and make sure no one will ever challenge him again, he has to destroy Deku first. Meanwhile, All Might is of course still alive, although he is clearly very weak and severely injured. He is being taken care of by Star's squad. All Might explains that the kids fighting out there right now want a perfect victory with as few losses as possible. And I mean, sure, everyone wants that, but I don't know how realistic it is to have everyone important survive such a massive and bloody final battle. Horikoshi's gonna have to be careful here, because if the ending is too happy and no one ends up dying, he will definitely get some backlash for it. We then see other people from all over the world watching and cheering Deku on. We see Melissa, Roddy, who I always call Rudy by the way, and we see other people as well. We even see Ochako Uraraka, Yes, that's right, Ochako is still alive and conscious, and she is still inside that helicopter, but as we learned, the helicopter is almost there. It's almost about to arrive at the hospital. This means that Ochako is almost certainly going to make it. And even though I say that some death needs to happen in a deadly war arc like this, otherwise it doesn't really feel like a real war arc with high stakes, I personally do want Ochako to make it because I'm a big Ochako and Deku shipper. During these tense moments, Ochako is, of course, thinking about Deku, and she is rooting for him just like everyone else. In fact, Deku's desperate attempt to keep fighting and to reach All For One despite everything he's been through is so moving that the President of the United States, who is also watching the live feed, decides that enough is enough. He commands his subordinates to send all of their heroes to Japan right now so that they can help fight All For One. When his subordinate says that if All For One wins and the US opposes him, he will then turn his wrath on them, the president screams that he doesn't care and to just do it now. Knowing what we know about Star and Stripe and how she literally had to go out on her own without approval from higher-ups in order to help fight against All For One, this is certainly a big deal and it marks a major shift in the international relations of the MHA world. And along with the US president, everyone else is saying and thinking the same thing. Gran Torino, Eri, Kota, and many, many more. Do your best, Deku. Ganbare, Deku. Finally and fittingly, we see Deku's mom, Inko. She has tears in her eyes and she is screaming, "Do your best, Izuku." And even though I really appreciated seeing Inko, this once again makes me think, where is Deku's father? Horikoshi promised he would introduce him by the end of the story, so what is going on? The story is about to end. Anyway, on the final page, we see that Deku has finally made it to All For One through the path that all his friends and allies fought so hard to clear for him. And in the end, he manages to land a massive punch right into All For One's chest. I have no idea what this punch is going to be called. Is it going to be like the United Nations of Smash? Or is it going to be called Serious Punch? We'll have to wait and see. So is this finally it? Will Deku's punch that is powered by the last remaining embers of One For All be strong enough to defeat All For One? Or maybe the fact that Deku has just made physical contact with All For One will trigger something new, a new power. For instance, maybe this punch will awaken the vestiges of One For All inside of Shigaraki's body, and then they will be able to start fighting All For One from the inside. Or maybe even Shigaraki himself will now manage to reawaken and fight back against his cruel former master. Will Deku's One For All embers combine with the vestiges inside of Shigaraki to unlock new powers that surpass even QUIRKS themselves? Powers that can destroy All For One from the inside out and maybe even reawaken Tenko Shimura? Or will this attack turn out to be just another failed attempt at bringing All For One down? With all that build up in the last 3 chapters, it does feel like this attack will be important. It does feel like this will actually make a difference and potentially awaken a new power within Deku, a power that will allow him to bring the fight to an end. But who knows, Horikoshi may yet surprise us. That said, I want to know what you guys think will happen next, so let me know down in the comments. Is Deku about to win this, and is the series about to end in only like a few chapters, or is this gonna be another failed attack and the fight will then continue for many more chapters? Let me know down below. If you're looking for an epic MHA video to watch next, don't miss my video on the top 13 strongest multiple quirk users in the entire series. Link on screen and in the description. If you enjoyed this MHA video and you want to see more in the future, leave a quick like to let me know. And of course, don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell to turn on all notifications. It helps me out a lot.